Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Always Right with Chris Thomas. My name's Chris Thomas. If you joined us last time, I think we had a lot of fun. We're going to have even more fun this time. Today we have some really cool, interesting, shocking things to talk about, as usual. We have one of my good friends on TikTok, her epic response to Leftists' inherent racism, which I'm going to expand upon even more. We're going to talk about the farce of trans suicide rates and how supposedly all of us cis white people are to blame for the mental problems of others. Shifting definitions. Leftists can never keep their definitions straight. They even misquote themselves when we debate. As well as introducing a really, really good friend of mine who's going to actually be on next week's show. So I'm excited to talk about all of that and more. The whole race argument is something that I've been talking about personally for a long, long time. I think a lot of us in society, especially young people who have been ideologically brainwashed, don't really consider race very much. I'm Asian. I don't think of myself as Asian. I don't think about my race. I don't identify very culturally at all with being Asian. But even if I did, what difference would it make? You know, in America, we're free. We live in one of the freest countries ever. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I think it shouldn't matter whether I'm Asian or not in terms of how other people view me, but I have never been reminded so many damn times that I'm Asian until getting on TikTok and dealing with these ridiculous leftoids. I never even thought about it. I mean, it's interesting. People will remind me that I'm Asian as if I've never looked in a mirror before and as if I didn't know what race I am. It's so silly. But I think one of the more damaging things we see in the whole identity politics, hellscape that we live in, is the mental put downs towards people of color who have found their voices, become free thinkers, who've maybe even if they haven't become conservative, they've walked away from the modern left. And there's a great example. A friend of mine, her name's Jess. Her TikTok handle is a natural woman goddess. She has great content. She's a fiery Italian, and she's just wonderful. And and I mean that with all the love in the world. And she saw this really troubling interaction where a leftist commenter, not surprisingly, basically commented on the video of a black TikToker who was basically saying that she doesn't live her life oppressed. She doesn't live her life in a victim mentality, and she refuses to see herself that way. And this leftist TikToker, put her down and told her that she should feel oppressed and that she will be oppressed. And I don't think there's anything more racist than that. I really, really believe that. And I love to play Jess's amazing response to that. Just for context, the comment said, quote, "You're young, you'll discover what America is really about. Just a matter of time." First of all, sounds very threatening. I think that's a horrible, disgusting comment. And here is Jess's response. Play the clip.
I wonder at what point white liberals are going to realize that leaving these sorts of comments under black people's comment sections is just a form of oppression and racism. I mean, think about it. You believe in systemic oppression. You believe in racism. You believe that white people hold the most power in the United States. You believe that you're at the top of the food chain, right? So your immediate reaction to hearing a young lady say she's educated, she's free, she can do whatever she wants, nothing is holding her back, is to oppress her in her comment section. Do not go and do this to people. Do not go and do this to people that are like, I have never felt any force holding me back from achieving my true potential. What is wrong with you?
Again, that is the lovely Jess, TikTok handle, a natural woman goddess. Please give her a follow. I think this is beautiful. I really, really do. Because it illustrates something that I've been saying for a long time too, which is leftists create a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to say that again. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell a group that they are oppressed and can't get ahead in life without the nanny state giving you free shit and lifting you up, if you tell a whole group of people for long enough that they cannot succeed without the help of white liberals using their privilege to help you, quote unquote privilege, then you are creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. And they will never be able to get ahead. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. Now, a lot of leftists will come back and say, well, are you saying that racism doesn't exist? No. Racist pieces of crap exist on both the left and the right. And I'm tired of this response. That just because we're not saying that there's some systemic evil society that's built to keep the black man down, just because I'm not buying into your conspiracy bullshit doesn't mean I'm saying racism doesn't exist. I'm just saying it doesn't. Not everything's about race. And I'm tired of it really is white liberals. She's absolutely right. It's putting their foot on the neck of the black community and saying, unless you'll accept our hand to help you up, you can't get ahead. And that's what commenters like this that Jess is responding to are truly saying. And it's horribly, horribly racist. Now, when we talk about self-fulfilling prophecies, this occurs in other demographics and other communities as well. Let's look at the trans community. And I know people are going to say, you're picking on the trans. I'm not picking on the trans community. I am picking on trans activism. I think trans activism is one of the evils of this time. And make no mistake, I truly mean that. I have all the compassion in the world for trans people. I'm not even going to say trans people. I'm going to say people struggling with gender dysphoria, because that is the correct terminology. The term trans is an activist term, and I won't honor it. I'm going to try to stop saying it. I'm so used to saying it because I'm a former lib, but I'm going to try not to say it anymore, because to say the word trans is to validate the concept that a man can become a woman and a woman can become a man. In both directions, it's completely untrue. The long-term data when it comes to suicide rates in the trans community is not a compelling case in favor of gender quote-unquote affirming care. It's just not. And that's the simple black and white truth. Suicide deaths in all long-term studies occurred during every stage of transitioning, both before, during, and after treatment, including in the groups where people were still receiving treatment for other mental health problems. The suicide rate is just so high. Now, people call gender affirmation life-saving care, but let me ask you this. Why is the suicide rate climbing over time? And people always say this, that the suicide rate climbs over time along with acceptance. Wouldn't the suicide rate decrease over time as society becomes more accepting? I mean, I think that's the nonsense of this whole argument, is that maybe affirming somebody's, I'll say it, delusion isn't the right way to go. We don't do that with any other mental disorder. When somebody is an anorexic or bulimic and they say, hey, I think I'm fat, and they weigh 80 pounds, we don't affirm their perception of themselves. We show them love, we show them compassion. We try to, as one of my other friends on TikTok put it, we heal the mind so the body can become healthy. We don't affirm the unhealthy perception of the body and then hope things fall into place. That's what gender affirming care is. We affirm the false perception and then just hope it works out. We pump steroids into your body, stop the body's healthy functioning, perform double mastectomies on people who have healthy breasts. There's a lot of women with breast cancer who have had to have double mastectomies, tragically, and they feel horrible about it. They're glad they're alive, and they would gladly do it. They have the operation so they can live and not die. But no rational thinking woman wants to have a double mastectomy on breasts that are healthy. It's just not something people would do. But here's my thought. I think if you tell a group, and you see this trans genocide argument happen so often, that somehow the trans community is under genocide. And I think if you tell a group, just like I talked about with the black community, if you tell a group long enough that they are under active genocide and that people are going to hunt them in the streets and that the government wants to kill them, don't you think the suicide rate will probably increase? Because you're living in a state of always feeling threatened because of the rhetoric aimed at you. And that rhetoric is coming from the left. And I think that's the thing that is so incredibly damaging, is when you have this leftist rhetoric coming at you, telling you you're not safe. Even if you're walking down the street and having a normal life, all you're hearing from people is that you're not safe, you're under attack. How do you think that makes you feel about your future? I mean, think about that for a second. I know if I was told every day that my very safety was in question and I could be killed at any time because the government and society hated me, even if I didn't feel hated and even if I had people around me that were lovely, kind people, I would probably feel like I had less of a future and like I have less hope for myself. And so it's no wonder the suicide rate is so high and that it keeps climbing in the trans community, because the rhetoric from the left has ratcheted up to such a ridiculous level. There's a lot of TikTok videos where trans people will come out and say that they're being genocided, and they'll go through the stages, and it's all gobbledygook. And I was feeling a little feisty a few weeks ago, and I actually had this response. Play the clip.
We are in the 7th level of genocide out of 10.
Let's take a trip down memory lane through the first 6 stages of genocide, shall we? Stage 1, classification. Which side was it that invented all those kooky terms? Non-binary, trans, gender fluid, cis, to describe the others? Stage 2, symbolization. I don't believe it was us cis people or us straight people that needed to create our own flag to symbolize our gender identity and sexual orientation. I thought it was you guys. Stage 3, discrimination. Every single big tech company censors, shadow bans, and blocks any opinions that contradict your agenda. Professors are also getting fired for speaking their minds about it. Discrimination? Stage 4, dehumanization. When a friend of mine on here, just for speaking calmly her mind, got threatened that she would be hunted for sport. Sounds pretty dehumanizing, doesn't it? I don't think I've ever heard a conservative implying that trans people weren't human. Stage 5, organization, meaning organization and planning to attack in an organized manner. Trans Day of Vengeance. Stage 6, polarization. Now, most conservatives, and I say most because there are a few bad apples in every group, most conservatives, when it comes to consenting adults, just want to live and let live. But which side had to infringe on the rights of our children in order to get their point across? Anyway, in no way am I implying that the trans community or LGBT activists are in any way truly planning a genocide, but the irony of this creator's claims is just so funny. Anyway, happy Friday, guys. I know that was a little smart-assy, but I stand by it. I really, really do. I also think it's incredibly insulting to people who've actually lived through genocides, who have experienced atrocities. You know, there are still people who lived through the Holocaust alive today, and I really believe there's nothing more insulting than hearing that. I really, really believe it. Though I suppose it is possible that the word genocide just doesn't even mean what it used to mean. We often see a common leftist tactic of changing definitions. Sometimes it's on purpose for more insidious reasons, and other times I think definitions change just because leftists don't understand their own definitions and don't know how to articulate them properly. And we saw this. I had this one exchange on TikTok that I think was a perfect example of this. somebody I know on TikTok was getting into it with a commenter who said that, who basically raised the question, so do white people who are living in abject poverty and who really have nothing, do they still have white privilege? And this particular leftist troll said, and I quote, "White privilege is essentially being financially set and not having to worry about where your next meal is coming from. You have it." And to add the absolute cherry on top to that, the creator that this commenter was addressing is black. So he's saying this black guy has white privilege. By the way, the creator who made the video that sparked this comment, his name is Jeff Mead. I urge everybody to follow him. He is an amazing, amazing creator. He's a free-thinking, great, intelligent guy, and I hope everybody follows him. I follow him, and a lot of my followers follow him. So please find him on TikTok. That's Jeff Mead. But I found this comment so interesting. White privilege is being financially set. So there they have it. They're actually defining white privilege as something that has nothing to do with race. So many, 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 and I mean many, black people have white privilege, and many, many, many white people don't have white privilege. So then it's not a race-based privilege. I mean, this person was trying to argue in favor of the white privilege narrative and just failed epically. And when I pointed it out, I made a video response. I'm not going to play so many videos that I've made because you guys can check it out and probably have seen them if you follow me on TikTok. But when I pointed out the idiocy of this, he fired back at me, and I quote, "I'm tired of explaining this to idiots. The real issue in this country is classism. The government doesn't care about your skin color. They don't care." And then I went, ooh, boy. So you're saying that systemic racism doesn't exist either. And I think they said the quiet part loud, that it's not about race. Nobody cares about people's race, except leftists. But it's, I don't know, it's just silly. The definitions, they always change. They can't articulate themselves properly. And then you have this whole notion that, you know, we got into a debate about class privilege, and then this person essentially admitted that they were an all-out commie. They said that money shouldn't make people better off. Somebody with more money shouldn't have access to more things in life, and that's and that to me is the silliest thing of all. My fiance Nicole, she came here from the Philippines. I know a lot of you have heard this story before on my page. Her mom was a single mom. They were actually on food stamps for a year, but their family busted their butts to get out of that situation, and they now are homeowners in a nice neighborhood. And I just think it's inspirational. It's wonderful. It's the true immigrant story, living the American dream. And, you know, coming from no money, they'll all absolutely tell you that money should help you get ahead, because that's why they worked so hard, is for that money. So, you know, to hear somebody just say money shouldn't matter, money shouldn't give you any advantage, it's like, do you want to live in communist Cuba or Russia or China? I mean, it's just so ungrateful to this country, and it's just amazing. It's really, really amazing. So to wrap up today's show, I actually want to make a really, really cool announcement that next week, on next week's show, so that'll be dropping on the 17th, I'm going to be co-hosting next week's show with a really, really good friend of mine. She's actually coming to my wedding in July. We're just that tight. Her name is Larissa. Her TikTok handle is over this shit. Let me actually check, because she's been banned by the fascist TikTok overlords and their leftist minions. She's been banned so many times, her handle keeps changing. So let me grab it. Her handle is, all one word, over this shit 6.0. Because it's her 6th account. Because of all these snowflakes banning her. It's effed up, I tell you. Anyway, she's a great creator. She's sassy. She's smart. She is passionate about what she is talking about. And she is taking a stand for biological women. I shouldn't even have to say... See, that's how sad of a state we're in. I shouldn't have to say biological women. She's taking a stand for women. And women's spaces being overrun by dudes in dresses. And I say that with love. Not really. I don't love when men try to take over women's spaces and erode their rights that they fought so hard for. I don't love that. But she is a wonderful, wonderful creator. She's full of fire and feistiness, and I mean that with total admiration. She stood up for me more than once when I've been attacked on TikTok and tried to be silenced, and I couldn't be more honored than to have her on the show with me next week. So I hope everybody will give her a warm welcome and give her a follow in the meantime. Her handle, Over This Shit 6.0. Anyway, guys, that is today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with other topics. We're going to be talking about Jeffrey Marsh. Jeffrey Marsh is one of those TikTok darlings that if you just say his name, you get banned because he's impervious from criticism. You'd think he's some kind of deity or something. But we're going to be talking about him, dishing on him, and talking about what's going on with the madness around that. And I'm excited to have that conversation with Larissa. Again, that's Over This Shit 6.0 on TikTok next week. Godspeed, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening, and thanks for the support. Take care.